Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you. And going live, for anyone who doesn't know, means we're taping right now. So I just want you to know that you'll get an email from me with a video starring yourself. And so hope that's okay. We do have about 10 people online right now, I think, watching, so I want to welcome them to the meeting as well. And of course, everyone who's here in person tonight. So we're excited to tell you about an educational opportunity that we are going to make available for students in grades 8 through 10 starting in the 25-26 school year. I'm joined tonight by administrative colleagues John DeRosia, Steve Hale, and Renee Considine. Also representing American International College, Sue Hendershon, one of our higher education partners supporting us in this effort. We're also working with STCC in this effort. Also, we have from the Wilbraham Fire Department, Patrick Farrow, who will be one of our industry partners. And I think that's Jeffrey Witek coming in now.
Witek, yeah.
Witek, hi.
There you are.
Thanks. So we'll be hearing from them in a little while. But this is really a night for you. It's a night to ask questions. When we first discussed this concept in the fall, I was just explaining some of the broad strokes of it. There really wasn't an opportunity for back and forth. But tonight is really an opportunity to have sort of a more open-ended discussion about what this opportunity means. For those of you who are watching online, the QR code that I sent you is active now. So if you have any questions to ask, you can scan the code and just type them into the prompt that will pop up on your phone. I would just ask anyone who's here tonight to not do that, because we found out last time we did one of these meetings, we can overwhelm the available bandwidth quite easily. So if you could just ask your questions orally if you're here, that will be helpful. To really quickly move through the presentation, because we want to save as much time for you, we'll get started. Thank you. So let me begin with our catchphrase, which is reimagining high school. If you ask why high school might be due for a reimagining, I would just point out that the current high school curriculum was established more than 100 years ago by a group of educators that was not necessarily young, even in 1893. This is a picture of the people who gave us our curriculum. Only 3 of the members on this so-called Committee of 10 were high school educators, and only 2 of them were for public high schools. And yet, they've sort of set in motion a pattern that's been repeated again and again and again. And one of the things that happens in education is once someone embeds something within the structure, it becomes really hard to change. On the other side of the slide, you can see what is a timeline of groups calling for reform to the high school curriculum going back to the late 1960s. The black, blue, and green bars show times when the federal government has been active in seeking a new way of doing high school. The yellow bars are state education agencies calling for the same types of reforms. And the orange bars are nonprofit agencies looking for education policy reform. And they were all recommending some version of a pathway approach to high school, because they were finding that the curriculum of 1893 was not preparing students for the economic opportunities of the 60s or the 70s or the 80s, so on to today. So what is a pathway approach? I liken it to declaring a major only at the high school level. Interestingly, the president of Harvard University, who was one of the Committee of 10, allowed Harvard to have majors starting in 1910. So about 17 years after the Committee of 10 made its recommendations. It was a time when college was kind of like high school. It's like, you went to college and you took the courses. There was no real picking, it was just a program. But by 1910, they realized that students needed an opportunity to focus on things that were of interest to them. Unfortunately, this idea never really made it from the post-secondary level to the secondary level. Didn't necessarily translate. So the pathway model offers high school students a chance to focus their studies in a way that aligns with a specific field, just like a college program has common core classes that everyone needs to take. A pathway has a lot of the same core classes that non-pathway students would be taking, such as 4 years of English, 4 years of physical education, but it also includes a specific sequence of courses aligned to an industry sector that students must complete as part of their program. We've chosen the healthcare and social assistance sector for our first foray into pathways because it's one of the highest priority industry sectors for the economic development of the Pioneer Valley and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And also because when we asked middle school families which pathway we should start with, there was a clear preference for this one. When we talk about pathways, we're preparing students for broadly defined industry sectors rather than specific jobs. And this sector offers a diversity of career options involving healthcare to both humans and animals, and jobs that require no college, or some college, or an associate's degree, or a bachelor's degree, or an advanced degree, or some kind of medical school. In other words, there are many different kinds of post-secondary education plans that can find a home in this sector. Specifically, students in this pathway, or in any pathway, must complete all the Mass Core requirements, which is the state-recommended program of study to help students prepare for college and the workforce. As of last year, 91% of our high school students completed Mass Core. So chances are that's something you'll do anyways, whether or not you join the pathway. In addition, pathway students must complete 2 technical courses and 2 advanced courses that are aligned to the sector. The advanced courses could be AP courses, dual enrollment, or certain other courses that are designated as advanced due to the rigor they provide. Students must also complete a 100-hour internship. A later slide shows some of the industry partners that have already agreed to provide internships for our students. Also, as part of the program, students will earn industry-recognized stackable credentials such as CPR. The program will be offered in the high school. We know we have a problem with overcrowding at the middle school. We know we have some space available at the high school. We also know that not everyone is comfortable having 8th graders at the high school. So we offer this as an option. You can start the pathway in 8th grade and join the high school right away starting next year if that's what you'd like. However, if you think it's a good idea, the pathway is a good idea, but not feel that you're not quite ready for high school, you could join the pathway as a 9th grader. And if your credit situation is solid, you could probably even join the pathway as a 10th grader and still fit the courses in. This graphic shows some of the key courses that students would take as part of the pathway. Remember, and those are the ones that are highlighted in blue. Remember, you only have to take 2 technical courses and 2 advanced courses. We've identified 12 different courses in the blue cells that could meet these requirements. So there are options, including the option to take more than the minimum number of required courses. Here's a list of our current industry partners who signed memorandum of agreement with the district. As I mentioned earlier, STCC is our higher education partner. I think Wesley stepped in. Wesley, I'll invite him to talk a little bit about that partnership as well as Sue. So we think this model provides a lot of advantages for students. It offers a high level of rigor, more focused high school experience, and an opportunity for students to think more deeply about the direction they want to take in life. Even if they start the pathway and decide the sector is not for them, that's an important piece of information. It's better to find out in high school than to discover halfway through college when you will also be told that changing majors is going to cost you both in terms of time and money. And because the standards in the pathway are higher than our typical graduation requirements, students who decide they want to leave the pathway will be in an advantageous position for the rest of their high school careers. The upshot is that they'll be able to take more electives because they will have already completed more of the required courses. So, We're looking for some pioneers to join us in this educational adventure. I hope there are some pioneers in the room tonight, some pioneers watching online, or some pioneers who will watch the video later on and decide they want to join. At this point, I want to make some space for some of my partners in this work to talk about what they'll be bringing to this experience. And so I'd like to first invite Renee Considine to talk to you all about the value of workplace learning.
Hi, good evening. As Dr. Provost said, I am Renee Considine. I'm the Director of School Counseling at Minnechaug. The work-based learning program comes out of our office. It comes out of the Counseling Center where we do school to career counseling. Our seniors have the option during their senior year to do what we call an internship or a job shadow. And what you'll find that Dr. Provost had spoken a lot about tonight are things that we already have implemented at the high school. We're putting it into a nice package to get your student that designation at the end of their, in this case, 5 years. So all of our students who go out on work-based learning, they are immersed into the field that they're choosing. So right now we have students down at the courthouse, we have them at the vet's office, we have them in hospitals, we have them in classrooms. The sky's the limit in terms of where we can place students. We always ask students what their first choice is, and we aim for that, and then we kind of backpedal if we can't place them. With this specifically, in healthcare has been a challenge to place students since COVID due to just different COVID policies, work shortages that we were finding at the different facilities that we place students at. So what this does, what Pathways does, as it creates those community partnerships, it kind of helps to guarantee our healthcare pathway students will have that guaranteed placement because our partners have committed. For years and years, Wilbraham Fire Department has been taking our students in both for fire and EMT. So that's a relationship that will simply continue into what they've already been doing. Same thing at Wing and Bay State, places like that who already have our procedures in place. They will welcome our students, but kind of just with a different set of paperwork involved. Our students and the mentors who take on the students get so much out of the program. Oftentimes the mentors, especially for first-time mentors, it's been such a gift to have these young students with them, and they are opening their eyes to see these new experiences. And it brings them a whole different level of learning than they would have seen in the classroom setting. Given the Pathways track, so right now we have a student who says, I want to do nursing for my internship or job shadow. Great, we call around, they do an application, we go over all of their credentials, and then we place them somewhere. What the Pathways does is by senior year, when they go out to do that internship or job shadow, they will have had already exposure in the field, at least at the course level. So they will have had maybe medical terminology in the classroom setting. They will have had anatomy and physiology in the classroom setting. And they will maybe have taken a class with STCC or AIC. So by the time they're doing that career immersion experience, their senior year, they've had some of the academics that will prepare them to kind of get more out of that experience their senior year. So that's work-based learning in a nutshell. Does anyone have any questions about those experiences?
And so now I would invite Patrick and Jeff to talk about what an internship might look like in the fire department if you choose that one.
All right, good evening, everyone. Patrick Farrell, I'm a captain with the Wilbraham Fire Department and head of our Fire Life Safety Education Department. And this is?
Jeff Wojtek, I am Emergency Medical Services Coordinator.
So, as Renee was saying, we've had an internship for over 20 years at least, and we thoroughly enjoy when the students come in. I was trying to do a tally, I think, and we were talking earlier. We've had so many students come in that have become either firefighters or EMTs. and physician assistants, nurses, surgeons. So our home, our station, our workplace is really going to provide a really immersive, unique experience for students coming in. You're going to get to see what life is as a firefighter and also the EMT, and it's so much more than just a loud fire truck going down the road. Wilbraham Fire is actually known for our paramedicine. We have 24 members on the line, and we're all trained to the level of paramedic, which essentially is about the highest level of pre-hospital care you could give in an emergency situation. And we carry many medications, and we can perform many different things to treat a critically ill or sick, injured patient. And do you want to kind of talk about how that works and how we do it?
Yeah, so what's interesting about emergency medical services is that we don't know what we're going to get. Anytime that tone goes off or that phone rings, we're going out to a lot of different things. We're going out to somebody who's having a cardiac emergency, somebody who's been in an accident, somebody who's very sick with maybe a disease. We encounter people in the community who have really rare conditions. So we're kind of getting a taste of all the different things that we could, if we wanted to get in the medical field, learn more about. And some people go, wow, this is great, but I don't like blood. And they still might be interested in some other things. There are some interesting considerations that we have to have. We are dealing with the public. It is our community. We encounter people that we know. Students have run into family and friends that, and there's a real privacy issue that they have to learn about. And it's really important to us, and kind of helps them get that HIPAA and those types of skills down.
Yeah, but we're going to teach you so much through just the life skills and interacting with us. It's pretty unique because we have a different shift every day. Everyone's got a different personality, and we have some really educated and smart people who really practice medicine and who are also great instructors. And just like any firefighter that comes through the door, we'll treat you as a brother or a sister, as we relate to. And on top of everything else we've talked about, you're going to learn about fitness. Fitness is very big. We have a nice gym where CrossFit is pretty big, so you learn how to work out. Especially right now, peer support between each other and mental health. You'll learn about that and how important it is. And really the importance about professional development and education. We really support that, and we strive to push that throughout our members. And at the end of it, you'll really learn how to cook some good meals and brew a good cup of coffee overall. So, we look forward to seeing you, and call us anytime or just come say hello.
Thank you. And now I would invite Wesley and Sue to come up to talk about how their institutions will be supporting us and supporting the students through this work. Okay.
I'm the adjunct professor with AIC, so.
I know that too.
Oh, you do that? All right, great. How's everybody doing? My name is Wes Carter. I'm actually a Minichild grad 2009. I currently work with Springfield Technical Community College. What we do is ultimately we're creating career pathways, high demand career pathways, leveraging our partnerships with West Springfield High School and Veritas Charter School. Essentially, we're building off of innovation career pathways and early college designations. It's fantastic to hear that Hampton Wilbraham has received the designation for the healthcare pathway. The good news is there's other monies that can be attached to the designation as well. For example, after you're designated, you are eligible for Math Skills Capital Grant funding, which can help. You can purchase new computers for a lab. You could purchase patient simulators if you were looking at offering more hands-on exposure to students in the building at Minichog. But also you can build downwards towards your middle school to get some excitement in the 7th and 8th grade years. Building career panels. Continuing, your partnership building with your work-based learning program. You know, there's just so many opportunities for you, not only in healthcare, but to potentially branch out into business. You could look at IT, computer science. So there's a lot of opportunity with the state-sponsored Innovation Career Pathways designation. What I'm going to talk to you about today is the types of courses that you could take at STCC if you were to go through this program. Again, with the robust offerings at Minichog, you have AP students who can earn their advanced coursework through that program. However, when you're thinking about catering to the needs of the middle 50% or our, you know, our lower income students or the students with learning disabilities, these hands-on opportunities to learn advanced coursework can completely change the trajectory of their lives. So I do challenge you, even if you think this may not be for my student or my friend, my neighbor, please look into it a bit, because statistically proven, getting students into hands-on opportunities directly aligned with like work-based learning, they're likely to, you know, completely change, you know, their life, and it's at an earlier age. So at Springfield Technical Community College, what I would recommend, you know, doing for a sequence of courses, the first course is called Communication and Professionalism in Healthcare. What that does is you basically work with a professor in the simulation lab, which is state-of-the-art, and you ultimately learn how to effectively communicate with patients in all different settings in the healthcare world. So essentially you go through, you learn how to effectively communicate, especially coming out of the COVID world. The students that are working in the patient simulation lab are definitely benefiting, and they're using their communication skills effectively to ultimately get those first jobs. So communication and professionalism in healthcare, also medical terminology, those are very common for students to take. Can be a little bit on the tougher side with a lot of memorization, but it has proven to really challenge students, and students definitely enjoy taking it. From there, students really can kind of pivot. You can go like an EMT track, or you can go like a phlebotomy track, while also potentially earning other general ed types of, you know, requirements if the agreement allows so. So, you know, I don't want to take up too much time, but again, congratulations to Hampden-Wilbraham, Dr. Provost. It's a great work that you're doing, and this is a great starter to really support the students' needs here in Wilbraham and Hampden. So thank you.
All right. Going off of what Wes just said about STCC, STCC is essentially across the street from AIC. We have a lot of students that move from HCC to from STCC to AIC to finish their going on from their associates to their bachelor's, etc. But for us, we also have the early college designation as well as do dual enrollment with many high schools. And we are try to tailor it to what the school districts need. It can be anything from the basic English, which I know that STCC will be covering, as well as it might be intro to psychology, it could be intro to education, it could be a variety of things. So we believe in tailoring everything to what is the needs of the districts. And we are also embedded in a lot of districts as far as doing model classrooms, which Hampden-Wilbraham just started, where our students that are in the program, even as early as freshmen and seniors, are moving into the school districts and seeing what it's like to really become teachers, become occupational therapists, whatever it is that they need or they want to pursue. From my perspective here, for internship purposes, we have a variety of programs through the School of Health Sciences as well as Business Arts and Sciences. But just to give you a few of the programs that we have that I believe would be great for internships for anyone who's going into health sciences would be exercise science. That's a very strong one these days, as well as applied laboratory science, obviously occupational therapy, physical therapy for anybody who's interested in doing that moving forward. Nutrition, we also have a speech and language pathology assistant program, which is a certificate program, which does not require that you move on and get your associate's degree, but it gives you so many credits so that you can get certified as a speech and language pathology assistant. and work underneath speech and language pathologists. The other areas, because we are definitely a strong athletic school, we do have sports and human performance, which we do have internships in that, as well as going into public health. So there's a variety of internships that you can experience by going through this program and working with us and STIC in order to support what you're looking for and decide if that's really the career path you want to go. Some people find out it's not, as John said earlier, and it's important to find out now rather than 4 years after you've gone through college and said, wow, I don't think I want to do that after all. So AIC is here. We are definitely available to answer any questions you may have, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you, and that's a good segue to the next piece, which is questions. So people who are watching at home, if you have any questions, and type them into your phone, it should pop up there. Folks who are here, what questions can we answer for you?
I have a question. If our students are enrolled in special education services, how does this pathway affect those services? Are they still eligible for academic support?
Sure. So I'm just going to repeat it for those who are watching at home. The question is, will students who are on IEPs still be able to receive their special education services if they're in the program? So the answer is yes. The program, as we said, is housed at the high school. We have a full array of special education services at the high school. We have a commitment in all of our program design to equity and making sure that this pathway is available to all students. And so one part of our program is called Enhanced Supports because we are asking students really to stretch themselves, right? We're asking them to go beyond what we require for graduation and really take on some challenging coursework. And so in order to make that possible, we know that we're going to have to provide special education supports, which could be co-taught classes, could be tutorial services. As Wesley mentioned, I think if you may find AP experience daunting, maybe taking a dual enrollment class might be a better way of doing that. I think it's also a nice transition for students with disabilities to the college setting where they get to start to work with disability services and see what kinds of accommodations will be available to them when they leave the K-12 settings. Other questions? Yes?
Can you just talk a little bit about what next year's 8th graders schedule would look like and what the social dynamic would look like with lunch and classes and the makeup of their classes?
I can, but the expert on that question is Steve Hale, because he's worked out the different schedules, so I turn it over to him for that.
First of all, for those at home, the camera adds 47 pounds. The 8th graders will be in a 4x4 block, which is what we currently run for grades 9 through 12. So the students will have 4 classes for first semester, just like a college, and then a different 4 classes second semester. They will have English all year, so they'll have English first semester and second. They'll have math all year, first semester and second. They'll have 1 semester of social studies, 1 semester of science, and then that middle block of their day is going to be their elective blocks. So their elective blocks could be where we provide additional support, academic support, or disability support. It will be where we do some phys ed, some skills-based programming like CPR training, those kinds of things for the healthcare pathway. Their classes will be with 8th graders, okay? Lunch, they're going to go to the same lunch, but they will be in lunch with the others. And it will be okay. It will be okay. For the most part, nobody pays attention to the other kids. They're all getting up, they're all getting General Tso's chicken, and they're all, buying the calzones. It just happens.
Okay, one follow-up. So for the 8th graders, Mr. Hill, would you be the principal of the 8th graders, and would they, you know, my background, would they be allowed to participate in high school activities, clubs and activities? How would that
So
work?
I'm sure we would have some clubs. I would be the principal, unless you've heard something else. My badge still works coming in here, so as far as I know. But I would be the principal. We probably designed some club stuff. Like I think they could participate in our regular club program. Right now, we're not planning on them participating in athletics because we feel like it creates an inequity. So the 8th graders that are here cannot participate in athletics. And the 8th graders that would be at Minnechaug could participate in athletics, and that creates an inequity, and it creates a, why are they coming to Minnechaug? Is it really for the pathway, or because they want to get an extra year of basketball? You know, that kind of thing. So, however, there are 3 sports that we've had to apply for a middle school waiver over the course of the last 2 or 3 years based on enrollment sign-ups for those sports: gymnastics, field hockey, and girls lacrosse. So if we applied for a middle school waiver for those for next year, any 8th graders, whether they're at the middle school or here at, at the high school or here at the middle school, they would be eligible to participate in those.
And I will just, if I can just, while I have
Yeah.
it here, one of the questions had to do about 8th grade, and I think you covered everything in your response, except for the buses. As you know, we are going to a new bus schedule next year. High school will be starting later than the middle school, so it will be critical that students who are in the program take the high school buses because they need to get to the right place, they need to get there at the right time. So yes, they'll ride the high school buses or be dropped off depending on the parents' preference. Sure.
So this is kind of in relation to the high school component. Unlike my son, my daughter, not my genetics because she's adopted, is very smart, very driven, very focused, which is wonderful. And I don't know if medical is where she would want to go, but certainly she's a driven kid who's a straight A student. And would this give her a very rigorous focus in education and comparable to whatever she would get at the high school if she were to take advanced placement? Like, she's already starting with a bunch of honors classes. Would it be that, and then if she decides she doesn't like it, that's fine, and flexible can go to something else?
There is flexibility in moving in and out. There isn't flexibility for the 8th grade year. You know, once you commit, or I gotta have you. I can't send you back.
Yeah, she's a nice.
And you know, once they're with us for the year. But if they were in 9th grade by then, and they decided, I don't know if I like this, I think I just want to do the 1893 curriculum that Superintendent Provost referenced at the beginning, yeah, you could slide back into that. That's not a problem.
But it also does provide a level of rigor and, you know.
Go ahead. No, to talk about that piece, you know, in my perspective, I think the pathway program is more rigorous because it has a higher level of requirements than our general high school graduation requirements. For example, you have to take 2 technical courses, and you look at what some of those courses are like, they can be challenging courses. You have to take at least 2 advanced courses. That is not something that all high school students have to do. And that's and this program doesn't take up all of your blocks, so it takes up a lot. But it still leaves time for students to take other AP courses or other more rigorous courses that they may want.
What about students that are in middle school band and they go to 8th grade into high school? How would that work?
So the middle block where I put their electives is when the high school band practices.
So they'll
go right into the high school band.
Okay.
Yep. Yes.
Logistically, how are you staffing this? Are you pulling teachers from here to go there? Or are you hiring additional teachers, or are they
how many pioneers do we have? If we have 100, then I'm pulling staff from here. If we have 20, then it'll be high school teachers that cover it. So it all depends on the numbers.
So one of the things we'll be doing in the course of the next several weeks is asking folks to commit. There are a few possibilities. Principal Hale just mentioned two. You know, it might be a small number of students and we could absorb them within high school. It might be a larger number of students and we'd have to do some shifting of staff. There is also another option, possibility, so I just want to make everyone aware that we could have a number that exceeds our capacity. We could have, say, 70 students, and that's too much to absorb by high school staff, but not enough to move over middle school staff. And if we get into one of those situations where our demand exceeds capacity, we'll fill the slots by a fair lottery. Aha, a new question says, to what an 8th grade pathway daily schedule differs from the current WMS schedule, are there any pathway-specific courses during the 8th grade year? So,
Yes, it will be a different schedule than the current 8th grade class, and I believe there's a health class that has some specific trainings during their 8th grade year.
yeah, we're calling it the Intro to Innovation Pathway Seminar. So that's a course that'll run off of the PE class, and that is probably where students will pick up their first stackable credentials. It would be a really good place for us to begin teaching CPR or some of those other skills. Now, if you come in 9th grade, you'll still have to take the seminar. It will be a block that'll come out of your 4 years of high school courses instead of your 5 years, but we can catch you up on that. But if you come as an 8th grader, the main difference will be you have the block schedule instead of the middle school schedule, and you'll have that intro seminar class next year. Yes?
Is there like a minimum grade that's higher than normal for the kids to maintain in this program?
No, our goal is not to push students out if they're struggling. Our goal would be to get them the support they need if we see that they're starting to struggle. And there's no entrance requirements either. The entrance requirement is that you want to give this a try.
Do you have a maximum number of 8th graders that can go, or a minimum that can go?
How many 7th graders do you have now?
200.
That would be our max, I think.
Yeah. I thought we talked about 40 being the 40 or 100 was the range.
Those are the numbers that work out really well. If it's 39, I'm not going to say, oh, for the course, for the sake of that one student, we're not going to offer it. If it was 101, I wouldn't say we're going to do a lottery to figure out which kid doesn't get in. But those are the areas that we're shooting for. Yes?
Hi there. Can you explain the difference between the pathway that you're offering and if I was a 9th grade student at CHOG and I would go to CTEC and take the nursing or the criminal justice program, or they're starting to offer some new programs in EMTs, firefighting, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So how is your program different from CTEC's program?
Great question. Just again, for those at home, make sure you understand before I launch into it. The question is, what's the difference between a pathway program and a vocational technical program? And I think that there are 3 main differences. The first is breadth. So when you're in one of those voc tech courses, they're preparing you for a specific job. And you mentioned some of the ones that it could be. In this, in a pathway, we're not preparing you for a specific job, we're preparing you for a broadly defined industry sector. And in the conversation tonight, we've already heard things like, sports medicine, EMT, nurses, surgery. It's not limited only to human patients. Veterinary is also part of this. There are literally hundreds of jobs within the healthcare and social assistance. We haven't really talked about social assistance, that's another part of it. So social assistance is like social workers, that's why we have the partnership with the courts. So it's not really designed to prepare students for a single job. It's designed to give them a broad exposure to an industry sector and give them the skills they need in order to take the next step if there's something within that sector that they like. I mean, as I said, there are some jobs they could get right out of high school with this, but most of the jobs within the sector would require continuing education of some form. So that's one difference. The second difference is the dosage of the work-based experience. So for the pathway, we've already said it's a 100-hour internship, which students would take during their senior year. With a Voc Tech program, it's essentially 50% of their entire high school is in some kind of a shop experience. And then the other thing is the location. In a Voc Tech program, even a half-day program like LVPEC is, the vocational courses all take place at a different school. Here, the majority of the courses take place at the high school. You know, the exceptions would be the internship, which obviously have to be off-site, and any of the dual enrollment courses with college. So that's the difference.
Also, can I
Sure.
add to that? I just wanted to add too, with the CTEC component, there's a big community of Minnechaug component that the CTEC kids tend to miss out on a bit. When you're a CTEC student and you're in your sophomore and senior year, you go in the afternoon, so you don't get back to Minnechaug until around 3:15. So coaches and athletics have made accommodations for those students who are athletes to accommodate their schedules, but they miss out a lot of club time, extracurricular activities, things like that. Also band kids, if you're a band, if you're in the band, you can't do CTEC and band. It's just the way the schedule works out, you're physically not in the building to do band. So those kind of sacrifices that the kids make, they wouldn't have to in the pathways. So.
And I say that not to disparage anything about CTEC. It's a great program and it helps a lot of our kids. I'm just trying to sort of clarify some of the differences between what this is and what that is. Is that a satisfying answer?
It's an answer.
Okay. All right. What else? Oh, another one on the screen. What does the coursework look like for students entering 9th grade next year? I think that you talked a little bit about that. Could you maybe give a little bit more specificity about what actual courses they'd be enrolled in?
Well, 9th grade would be the biology, which is part of the Minnechaug curriculum, but it's also a pathway course. English, 2 maths. They would probably take their first year of world language during their freshman year, phys ed, and their health class, which would probably have the same seminar class, because we're trying to get the 8th graders and 9th graders through that first cornerstone of the pathway program.
So I'll just add that, you know, I don't want to change the slide, but if you can think back to the one that had the blue blocks, you can think of it almost as a pyramid. The experiences build and add as you go through the years. So you're starting out with just sort of dipping your toe and having some experiences in the field to when you're in senior year, a substantial part of your time is spent in courses that are either related to the field or the internship in the field. So it kind of builds up over time. One other thing that I wanted to say about that is we haven't talked a lot about the counseling component of this, but that's another piece that's really important. So students in this program would participate in something called MyCap, which is a really intensive counseling program designed to have students reflect on what they're learning, whether they seem like they're going in the right direction or the wrong direction, trying to learn more about what their interests are and what their skills are, so that they leave high school not just with a diploma, but with a direction and a plan of something that they think aligns with what their interests are and what they're good at.
What would the classroom sizes be for the 8th grade in the
It depends on how many pioneers we get, but in a setting of 40, we would hope to have 2 sections, which would be 20. And same for 100 would be 5 sections. So, you know, if we had 43, we're going to have a class size of like 21, that kind of thing. So it really depends on how many sign up. Yes?
I think we've called on 2 different polls. How about we go here and then here, if that's okay? Go ahead.
Yeah, is there any plans to extend the Pathways program to other career opportunities outside of healthcare and social?
Yes, thank you for that question. If you remember when I was here in the fall, part of the objective of that night was getting some feedback from families about what their interests were in potential pathways. And I talked about the 5 that are statewide, and then the 2 that also align with our region, which 2 align with our region are the healthcare and social assistance that we're doing, and the other one was advanced manufacturing. Now, while it was like 2 to 1 for healthcare and social assistance, that minority group that was interested in advanced manufacturing was also large. That was like 50 or 60 families said they might have an interest in that. So that would be the next pathway we hope to bring on board. We have some teachers who are going through some coursework this summer with Project Lead the Way that would be sort of the introductory courses to that advanced manufacturing pathway. So once we get this one launched, if hopefully people think it's a good idea, we'll move on to trying to stand up our next pathway, and it would be advanced manufacturing.
Question, you had mentioned that right now 91% of our students are graduating with the state minimum. How does this help get the other 9% to state minimum?
So one of the things that I mentioned was our real intentionality around making sure that this group is a representation of our whole student body. So we have, this is actually, even though this is sort of the first big presentation, we have given this presentation in smaller groups to other groups of families that represent students who have historically not been so well served by public schools. And so our goal is to really be focused in the outreach to that group, because that's really the group that's that 9%. So to the extent that we get some of those students involved in this pathway, and I think we will, because I think it speaks to some of the strengths that a lot of the students have. It's more hands-on, it is more concrete, it has real-world applications that they can see. That will be a part of the strategy of getting that other 9%.
If you wound up with 100 students that wanted to get into this program, how is the guidance office going to handle supporting those students in their social emotional health as they transition this? Are you going to hire somebody else, and is that in the budget? Because with the school budget finance committee stuff, it seems like cuts are happening and stuff. So is it going? Are they going to be able to be supported emotionally?
Well, let me just clarify, there's no cuts in the budget right now, so fortunately, thank you. Everyone please come to tell me. Make sure that happens. If it were 100 students, that is something that we'd have to take a look at. We talked about moving some staff from the middle school. If it was that many, we'd have to take a look at some therapeutic staff as well, probably.
Even if it's 40, though, that's a significant. How many? I'm curious. How many guidance counselors are in the high school?
5.
There's 5. So if there was so there would be an extra 8 kids. How would they get divvied up and supported? I guess is my concern. Because it's already a big transition anyway.
No, I understand that. One of the things that we're doing this year to try to mitigate that, let's say if it's 40 in that scenario that you just presented, is we've paused any school choice students going into 9th grade. So typically that group is about 40 students. So we figured, that's one of the ways we're saving, preserving space and reserving resources for those students. So that is kind of a capacity we have built in, and that would be our first plan for that.
Thank you.
Oh, One on how do fine and applied arts fit into the pathway?
Well, for 8th graders, it could be an option for their electives based on what else are they interested in. So if they're a band student, they're going to have less choices because band goes all year. But if they're not a band student, that fine and applied arts would be an option in that area. And then as their schedule goes on through 9th through 12th, they have opportunities in their schedule for electives and space in their schedule to take electives. Now, one of the things I would say is as the pathway gets narrower, so when we get into junior and senior year, AP courses, courses at AIC, courses at STCC, there's a lot of C's in this. The choices become less, right? Because now we're starting to narrow in on the more technical side of the training and more exposure into the variety of field work that we'd be talking about.
Are there any other questions in the house? Yes?
I just want to give a little pushback on the vocational Chapter 74 programs and the pathway. I'm curious, are you hiring new staff to teach the innovation classes? Or who's qualified to teach the medical terminology class?
The medical terminology class is a dual enrollment with STCC.
So can you explain a bit how that works? Because I know we're throwing around a lot of college names, but I guess what's hard for me to visualize is what is a typical kid's schedule going to look like? Are these kids driving to STCC? Are you driving an 8th grader to take a class? I don't know how that works. I'd like to see how that works.
Sure. So I'm going to actually ask the folks who are experts in that to come and talk about how it works at their institutions. But one of the things I want to just clarify from the beginning is these are courses that come later in the sequence. So we wouldn't be talking about 8th graders doing dual enrollment. You're talking about 11th and 12th graders doing dual enrollment. So driving could be an option. But if you'd like to just speak to how that's worked. Sure.
Absolutely. So great question. So I'll let you know how we've run it with both West Springfield High School students and Veritas Prep Charter. We've run a Saturday course in the spring semester, and we were able to bring in 20 students. Another thing is for the patient simulation lab related courses, for example, the communication and professionalism, but also like a lab safety type of course, we want to get you on campus. With my position, obviously, do I want to be sending 17-year-olds to downtown Springfield for a 7 to 9 p.m. course? No, and I want to think about the parents who have to also make these decisions. So if there's ways that we can, one, potentially host courses at Minichog, so now you are alleviating the issues of transportation, which often comes up. Number 2 is being able to cohort courses, like on the weekend, or making it so it's a reasonable time. Just so you know, at Stick, it is completely gated off. It's hard to get in and out, and we do have security guards who are there, and the state police work there, just a heads up. But obviously thinking about the students and what the parents are thinking, that's number 1. We want you to be safe, and the time I've been there, everything's been great. The other thing I wanted to mention, we were talking about Chapter 74, and then an Innovation Pathway program. We have students in our Innovation Career Pathways program that basically went through employers, earned their CNA, gained a bunch of 3 years of work-based learning experience, and were able to stay in their general high school and didn't have to go somewhere else for the education. So it's all about kind of how you customize it within your walls across the state. I think there's 200-something Innovation Career Pathways at this point. When I started, we were one of 9. So it's great to see, and the state is sending money the way of the Innovation Career Pathways into early college. So jumping on board now is definitely good. The last thing I wanted to mention was In West Springfield, we started our Innovation Career Pathways program with one pathway. It was recommended by the state to do so. And I also recommend it to any school that I work with moving forward. It allows you to figure out really the ropes of how everything works, your reporting, your recruiting, all of that. And then year 2, you're eligible for additional funding to ultimately get in for sustainability of your pathway that you're starting, implementation, but also if you're planning, you can plan year to year on new pathways. So again, thank you all for listening, and that's it.
I would just say with AIC, it really truly is tailored to the district. We work with many of the schools in Springfield, Putnam, as well as Springfield International Charter. We work with Maha Regional School District. If you have any ideas to where that is, that's way up, far away from us. And so in that case, what happens is that after the district decides what courses we are providing them, we either do a online, remote synchronous, where the students are working with our professors, but at the same time on campus at their school, one of their teachers is also in the room to support that, co-teaching model, so to speak. The other thing is that we do have people, just like he said, come to campus. They come to campus from Putnam, et cetera, and they take the work there, as well as we have our professors drive to them, and then they don't have to leave. When I was in another district, that's the way we did it too, was that we had them drive to the students as opposed to having the students have to leave the school district. For safety reasons and for a lot of other reasons, liability-wise, it did make for a better experience for the students, and it's really tailored to what Hampton Wilbraham would like and what we will do to compensate and meet the needs of your students.
I think the other thing I would add is all of that is happening right now without a pathway. We have kids leave the school day at 9 o'clock. They can drive to HCC, take a class. They come back at like 12:30, take another class with us. Like all of those things. We have kids taking college classes online that are in the library of our school. So this isn't new for us to manage. And as kids go through their high school career, it's very much like college. Your first year of high school is a lot of requirements, right? Knocking all those things off. By the time you get to junior year, we got kids senior year that finished in January because they were all done with their coursework. And then they went right to college, they went right to work, so all of that is already happening. This is just a streamlined approach for one field that we know the Pioneer Valley is in desperate need of people to work in that field.
Yes.
So if we had to basically give kind of an incentive aside from, I know you mentioned the 4 years or the 5 years, what would be like that little pinch to make a parent want to send their child in the 8th grade versus 9th?
So for me, I would say it's having a cohort of students that is going to be together, just doing the pathway. You know, as Mr. Hale explained, we're creating sections, likely 2 sections. If it's 40 students, if 8th graders will be together. And they will all be pathway students. And that will be a strong peer group for those kids as they go through the rest of their high school careers. That would be my answer.
Calzones are really
All right. Yes, sir.
You mentioned a couple of the careers in the field that this could possibly cover. Is there like anywhere a master list of generalized careers that this would open up?
Yes, we do have some materials that are being printed right now, and it's organized by the level of continuing education that you need to get. We will get that out to everyone as soon as that's ready. I can tell you there are probably 50 different careers in that list, and I don't think it's exhaustive. But I can say that, just speaking within our partners that we already have signed up MOAs with, that we can offer internships in veterinary, pharmacy, any of the health-related fields that happen in a hospital setting, physical therapy, and then we also have some healthcare-related work that happens in the district around both occupational therapy and physical therapy, and then through our partnership with the Springfield Courts, social work. So that's the beginning of the list, but I will be sharing more full list with everyone in days to come. Anything else? Yes?
My concern is what's happening in the state. We're in the process of building the budget for K-12 education. But what's happening on the federal level has me very, very nervous. And I see this as affecting all of the programs that we offer in both communities. So I would like everybody here, first of all, I applaud you for showing an interest. But I would ask you to follow what's happening on the state and the federal government and communicate with your elected officials. Because we need the state to back up the public schools in Massachusetts should these federal cuts come down, which would be devastating not only for this program, but for every program. So whenever I see a group of parents who show this kind of interest, I can't let the opportunity go by to say, we need to raise our voices and say this state needs to continue to cherish public education. That's what it says in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Constitution. So we need them to back us up.
Thank you. Well said. Any other questions? All right, so let me just leave you with a few thoughts. This has been kind of the adults' night, which is the way it should be because the adults are the shot callers. But I'll remind students that tomorrow we have another session. It'll be just for students at the middle school. So if you want to have another talk about this and maybe have a chance to ask some of your questions, I'll be back. And then also I wanted to say, if you have any questions that you didn't think of tonight, that occur to you, as you're driving home, as you review the video later on, feel free to reach out to me. We will answer them to the best of our ability. I will be reaching out to all of the families in 7th and 8th grade, asking them to indicate their interest in the pathway program for next year because, as we've explained tonight, we have to make some personnel decisions based on how much interest there is. So thank you really for showing up. Thank you for all your questions. I hope you have a better idea of what this concept is, and I hope you will consider it. Thank you.